Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the All Work, All Play podcast. Today we have one of the scariest, org-owning, and kink-encouraging VTubers that I know to this day. My humble boss, Aeon, thank you for coming onto the show.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
That's amazing to hear. So, just jumping right into it, one of the biggest questions that I've had is,
Okay.
why did you decide to become a VTuber? Was it appeal of like portraying your own person? Did anime have any influence in it? Because I know you were a huge anime fan.
Indeed, I am. So I can't lie and say that anime didn't play a role in it. I've been watching anime for pretty much as long as I could walk. My parents were both anime fans, and I was raised on that. I was blessed enough to be able to spend 2 years in Aomori, Japan for my last 2 years of high school, where I started to get into like impressions and voice acting and stuff like that. And so VTubing, like honestly, really came from just me being immersed in kind of that culture, especially coming into, back to the States and falling in love with V streamers like Silvervale, Iron Mouse, Neanders, a lot of the fucking Hololive and Niji Sanji members, like just absolutely infatuated. But really the kick for me becoming a VTuber was my friend Mitch. We'd been friends for quite a while, and I'd been really, really interested in like at least dabbling in it. Man, it started out as me just having a VTuber model to just have whenever I didn't feel like having my face cam on for streams. But then I just eventually went off into the deep end and really just wanted to get into it as an outlet for me getting ready to, voice act again. A couple of opportunities that come across the table for me to voice act. And they gave me the liberty of creating my own character. And I was like, wow, I can really take this VTuber and really turn it into the characters, not only that I'm portraying through this voice acting project, but also to put a bit of myself into it. Because obviously, you don't want to do anything for multiple hours a day that you don't really see a piece of yourself in at all.
Of course.
Yeah. So that's really what led up to me becoming a VTuber.
That's amazing. I didn't even know you lived in Japan at any point. I don't know if I've known you that long. I'm sure I haven't, but
no, that was definitely that was way before. I graduated from high school in 2015.
Oh yeah, so you're a boomer. I graduated 2020. I'm a child. Damn. So does that mean your bones are like creaky, or is that not happening yet? Yeah, I figured.
Yeah.
Hey man, I'm sorry to hear about that. Hey, prayers going out to you.
Hey, bless up,
So give me some context on who, or I guess what your VTuber is. Name, I guess, background story, anything like that. If you have stuff like that.
Oh yeah. When I decided to sit down and write this character, his name is Aeon Agohige, and Aeon is actually the character that I'm also portraying in the voice acting project that's going to be coming out, I think, around January. I'm not really allowed to release any information about what the voice acting project is yet, but there's going to be some pretty nice stuff coming out of it. But going into Aeon's lore, Aeon is, to keep it short, Prince from a faraway land. His family was one of the three main ruling factions of Japan, and was pretty much the patriarch of the entire dynasty. There was a rival family that lived in the Agohige Shadow. They basically betrayed them, overthrew the patriarchy, and Aeon's family was killed in the process. Basically being deserted and fleeing for his life. He was raised by Lady Amaterasu, who is in Japanese mythology the goddess of creation. She adopted him and took him in as her own, which is why my eyes are it's a resemblance of a morning sky, and that's because Lady Amaterasu's full name is Amaterasu Omikami, which is the great divinity illuminating the heavens.
I see now.
Yeah.
Did you? I'm assuming that you wrote the entire backstory and kind of got all of this together by yourself.
Yeah. My parents were huge mythology and history nerds, which is why my IRL is Leonidas. My father was a huge history buff, especially a war history buff. So I was named after King Leonidas, which, if you've watched the movie 300,
Yeah.
was a Spartan general who led an army of only 3,000 men against the Persians. I mean, 300 men.
I was like, hey, yo, that's not the movie title.
It's like, wait a minute. Led an army of only 300 men against the Persians and pretty much died the most valiant death you could ever think of.
Yeah. I mean, that's super interesting to hear, especially the fact that you have so much backstory and how a VTuber's, I guess, character can have a lot of depth, because I'm not extremely familiar with VTubing. I'm very basic in terms of content creation and streaming. VTubing isn't something I've really explored, but seeing your tweets and content, and then obviously being able to have this discussion with you, really shows a whole nother side of it that I didn't even know existed.
Yeah. In all reality, and the cool thing about VTubing is that it can happen on pretty much any level. I have friends who are VTubers who their backstory is literally they're just the ghost of a cat. And that's it.
Hey man, I'll be a cat sometimes, like.
Yeah. And then I have friends who literally have gone so deep into VTubing that they have like entire like production value anime intros and outros from when they end and when they begin their streams. Like full on credit scenes and I'm talking like $3,000 to $4,000 models with tons of expressions and models and outfit swaps, and it's like it's almost like you're creating an entirely new like person and giving birth to an entirely new person in this world, and it's absolutely insane. I didn't really, like I said, this really just started as me going, okay, I'd like to have a cute little anime avatar to have when I don't feel like having my face cam on, and then I just got sucked in, and it's I don't regret it for a single day.
I mean, I think that's the best part about creating I guess just a VTuber in general. You like you were saying, there's people that spend thousands of dollars on that, and I'm sure all the high-end like HoloLive people just dump money into it because at some point it becomes a show. It's no longer I want to hide my face, or I want to have like this character to express myself as. I'm creating an entire show based around this person. You are the main protagonist of your own anime. Yeah, which I think is insane to think about, because some people just kind of throw on Warzone and go, all right, well, this is my face next to it, and then that's it. That's the whole content. Like, that is the content. But VTubing has always interested me because I see a lot of the popular ones like Gargura constantly on like my TikTok feed. Yeah. Not to expose myself. But it's just like it's interesting to know that there's so much behind it, more than just like, cute anime girl. That's funny. And so the next question that I had loaded up, you kind of answered a little bit, unless there's more in-depth reasoning, is that I originally met you over Twitter and everything as Okami. Yeah. So was there a specific reason you changed from Okami to Aeon, or is that kind of tied into slowly developing into a VTuber and giving yourself this backstory and character to portray yourself as?
It's twofold. The name Okami was still really close to me. It was a nickname that I picked up over while I stayed in Japan. When I lived in Japan at the time, I had a gigantic afro. And every time that I would go to the local barbershop that was only a couple of minutes away from my school, I eventually ended up with the nickname Kura Okami, which is Black Wolf. Only because I'm African American. Yeah. And at the time they would always joke about like my eyes and how they kind of stuck out. And it said they were reminded, because I was hairy as well. They said that it reminded them of a wolf, and so the name Okami just kind of stuck around, and I just left the kuro out of it and just went by Okami.
Yeah.
And then when I got back to the States and I wanted to get into content creation, I stayed as Okami for a very long time. And when I made the decision back in October of last year to begin my transition into becoming a VTuber, I was like, this is what I want. I already have to create this persona for a project. I might as well just full send it and embrace everything about my content around this character in order to not just promote this project, but to promote my abilities as a voice actor, as a performer, and everything of the sort.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, the Black Wolf, hard ass nickname. That is cool as fuck, at least to me. Like, I mean, you could have gone with maybe being a little less hairy, like shaving every now and then, but I mean, that's on you, bro. That's 100% on you. So I'm guessing the love for anime and then just slowly content creation as you were growing older made you want to voice act. Is it voice acting
Absolutely.
for specifically animation, or voice acting just in general for even like Tide Pod ads?
So as I was growing up, and obviously as my voice matured, I had a lot of people tell me that I had a voice for radio, and I was like, okay, well, I mean, that's cool, but I've always been enthralled just by voice acting and like animations, and obviously growing up watching anime.
Yeah.
I grew up, on stuff like Shaman King, Hunter x Hunter, Bleach, Soul Eater, One Piece, older ones like Saint Seiya, Sailor Moon,
Yeah.
both respectively from my mom and my dad. And so I grew up having strong male voice acting like role models in front of me. And more importantly, I grew up watching JoJo's Bizarre Adventures.
Oh boy.
And Daisuke Ono, who is the voice of Jotaro, has been a role model of mine for a very, very, very long time. And slowly but surely, I just began to get a love for voice acting from the various video games that I would play, from like Darkstalkers and like Okami and Mortal Kombat, and there would always just be voice lines that stuck out to me, and it would always literally just like with any type of sound, any audio, because I also grew up as a musician.
Yeah.
It just gets kind of stuck on a cogwheel and repeats until you're sick of it, but you just start to repeat it like it's muscle memory.
Yeah.
And that's how that's how it really started. I would just like start to repeat and try to mimic voice lines from video games and anime that I'd heard, and as I started to notice the similarities, and I noticed that I was getting more and more accurate with them, I began to get more ambitious with what I would try to replicate, and began to chase after more stuff that didn't necessarily naturally sound like me. And eventually I just started getting into voice acting.
That's interesting, because I've always seen a lot of, I'm going to use TikTok as an example again. I've always seen like some voice acting, I guess, content on TikTok, but it's people that already know how to do it, or are just like showing it off for content and views and stuff, of like, I can do all of these voices. But it's interesting hearing, I guess, the process of how it slowly kind of takes over or becomes like a hobby or interest from somebody that didn't really know about it. It was just kind of, you were watching TV and then you want to try and mimic voices.
Yeah.
And it slowly like balls up from there.
And even now, like when it comes to like certain characters that I love and appreciate and stick with it, when it comes to doing their impressions and stuff like that, it's you literally take some key points about their voice and you just memorize it until it literally becomes like a function of your own vocal cords, and your voice just slowly adapts to it.
Is there an impression of any character, whether you've created them or not, or an anime from you've seen, that you think is your 100% best impression?
100% best impression. I don't necessarily. I'm incredibly hypercritical of myself, so I don't always necessarily think I have a best impression. But the default impression that I always go to when people ask if I can voice act is Doomfist from Overwatch.
Do you mind giving me some lines? I'm very intrigued. As an Overwatch fanatic, I'm intrigued.
Okay. I am going to make you punch drunk. So mean I make medicine sick. Combo breaker.
Holy shit. that sounds extraordinarily close to how Doomfist like actually sounds. At least coming through my headphones and everything, it sounds very good. Now,
yeah,
I know you mentioned kind of becoming like an audio nerd, and I know you grew up as a musician, or at least playing, you know, some instruments. Does your microphone play a huge role in, I guess, the things you want to do? Like, have you, I guess a better way to word this is, have you just poured money into your audio equipment, whether it's your microphone, if you have like a DXLR, I believe, anything like that, to try and chase your dream of doing voice acting?
That is a multifaceted answer. So, as of right now, so while I was in college, I had an XLR microphone. When I moved to Michigan to start my IRL job, some of that equipment got lost. But I ended up, paying a little bit more money than I wanted to, and I bought a really, really decent USB microphone. And most of these settings that I use in order to kind of replicate an XLR effect, especially in my streams, I use those just through manipulation of audio filters within OBS.
Yeah.
And for the most part, it gets the job done. Most voice acting clips that I've done have been through audio manipulation within OBS, stuff like expanders and limiters and compression mic simulations, different MST plugins, and ultimately disabling noise suppression, because that takes away a lot from people that have lower, like, voices with lower registers, like how mine naturally sits. So it's you have to, when you don't have the absolute best microphone, which in my opinion, if you're just trying to do like small voice acting projects and you're not doing like something for like Blizzard or Activision, you don't need the best. And 9 times out of 10, if you're working for a huge animation or recording studio, they will send you to a recording studio for you to do it, so you won't always need that best stuff at home. And that's just coming from, I graduated from Full Sail University. And so a lot of the times in Full Sail, we got to work with industry professionals from different recording labels, from like Universal and Republic. And that's just a reality that we faced. When we had to do something, it was never record this at home. It was show up to the studio at 8:30 in the morning, and you're there for 8 hours until you get it right.
Yeah. Is there any, especially from university, is there any memorable moments of like either frustration or like extreme excitement from like finally nailing a line, or anything that really stand out that you think made you a better voice actor as a whole?
Yeah, actually, absolutely. There was a mock skit. We ended up having to do a group project in my last year of uni, and it was a mock skit that one of the group had to write, and we all kind of, there wasn't necessarily a specific character trope that we had to fit in within the script. It was more just, you read it for how you interpret it, and you convey your emotions accordingly. And there was just this one scene that I felt like I couldn't nail, because there were some points where I felt like I was monotone, and I mean, push comes to shove, I realized that I was incredibly nervous. And my nerves being on edge, it just kind of forced me to lock up and go monotone. And it annoyed me to my core, and it took me almost a full 3 weeks that we had to work on it to get it right. And the very last day before we got to turning in. I remember this specifically because it was like 8:30 at night. I was like emotionally drained. Everyone else was like, bro, like you got it, stop overthinking it. And I just went in there, I put some music in my headphones, and I just recorded. And I recorded maybe a solid 10 to 12 times over and over again until it just, my brain went into autopilot and I said it. And my friend Sean, who was in like behind the mixing board, literally stopped the recording, was like, shut up, you got it. That's it. That was like the best thing that I've heard this entire 3 weeks of you recording this. We're taking that.
Yeah.
And it really taught me to, even though I'm still dealing with being hypercritical of myself in regards to my voice acting and even just my normal speaking tone and presentation, that sometimes you really just have to shut your brain off and just let it work.
Just do you is what I've kind of limited down to, is just whatever happens.
Yeah.
But I mean, a 3-week project.
Yeah.
That's, I can only imagine. That was your final year?
Yeah, that was my final. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, did you pass?
Oh yeah.
I was like,
I would hope I passed. I was salutatorian of my class.
Hey man, dude, good on you. Good on you for that. I think after 3 weeks of like mental torture, even if I'm just torturing myself on anything, I would just give up. Man, do I really need this degree? Like,
there were quite a few times where I was in that state, but thankfully I had some really great friends at the time that really pushed me even when I didn't want to push myself.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. And now you can, say you did it, graduated, everything. You got the proof right there. And now you're doing voice acting things nowadays to really solicit it and make it worth your while.
Yeah.
Taking a bit of a turn back towards content creation. I personally know, and I'm sure many people are going to watch this, you are the owner of the organization KZN.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is some of the biggest challenges you faced, either grand scheme of things recently, of just growing an org from the ground up? I mean, like starting from like 0 followers, having to recruit people, and then just build a brand around this image that you and I know some of the fellow management team see.
Yeah. It was really difficult starting from the ground up. I had been in esports for quite a while as like a hobby. I'd been contracted to a few teams in the past, and I dealt with it from the player side, but I'd never really dealt with an organization from the management perspective. And so when things happened and I got placed in ownership of what ended up to becoming Kazokus Nation, I honestly had no idea what to do. It took a couple of weeks of research, contacting some of my friends who were already running orgs, and some acquaintances that were already in management in other organizations, and really just buckled down to me saying, "Help me! I don't know what I'm doing. I can barely see 2 feet in front of me." But thankfully, just like you said, we had quite a few members of management that really sat there and held me down. Immediately, the two that I can say that I give the most credit to are Mel and Amanda. Those two have been pretty much my anchors throughout the entirety of me running KZN. And pretty much any time that we've had a major issue within, that we've handled within the organization, those two have come running every time that I've called, and I don't think I'd be able to run this org without them.
I mean, Mama Mel. Regardless, Mama Mel. I mean,
absolutely.
I think it's extremely important that you have pillars like that. That way, not the entire thing doesn't rest on your shoulders. So I mean, I've known for a little while now, but I think it's extremely important to just have pillars. I think not even for organization purposes, but for your own content, your own daily struggles, having people or even things to kind of support you is extremely important.
Yeah, I was I'll be transparent. I was horrible with that, about allowing other people to shoulder the stuff that I was going through, like at the beginning of the org. I was so dead set on everything being perfect and everything being right that I just shuffled time and effort and money, and I didn't really let the rest of the people that wanted to be involved really take the full amount of involvement that they wanted, and it ended up backfiring on me, like health wise, um and ended up backfiring like with just stuff in internal relations with the new organization. And I had to have a sit down with myself and a reality check with myself, and I was like, you've got to relax, because if you don't, if you end up pushing yourself to the point where you know overwork your body, end up in a hospital or something, who's like, no one else has enough prior information to run this org because you've been doing it all on your own.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I'm very happy to be able to say that you're doing amazing in terms of running this org. I know it's not only you at this point, but I mean, getting to the point by yourself, realizing that you kind of need those people behind you, especially running the org. Yeah. I can only imagine it takes a lot. So,
yeah,
I mean, you've done fantastic
had a lot
things.
I appreciate that. It took a lot of moments of me having to put my own pride to the side.
It's done amazing. I mean, the org, at least in my opinion, is growing steadily. It has a great reputation to its name. I know we have a couple sponsors and partnerships, and
we do indeed.
I mean, that is all thanks to you and the management team, and being able to sit down and do that yourself. And I can only imagine how much work goes in behind closed doors. Besides you throwing Valorant games and being extremely sus on Twitter, I mean, I'm sure you work extremely hard.
Yeah, we try our best to maintain some type of baseline communication, even if it's not within the staff chat that we have in the Discord. Things from like just casual conversations about games, asking each other how our days are, just double checking on each other's mental, and just making sure that we're open for each other outside of a business perspective. I think it's really important because one of the core values that Kazoku Nation is built off of is, well, Kazoku means family in Japanese.
Yeah.
Which and everything about this org, I didn't necessarily want it to feel like an org.
Yeah.
Now, for business purposes, this is an organization, and everything we do from the business perspective is going to be airtight. I'm going to read every contract. I'm going to make sure I share it with my staff. I'm going to make sure that everybody gets a copy, that we save it and we archive it. But outside of that, this is a family. We fuck around and we bullshit and we do, what makes our hearts content. And, right now we're in a spot where there's a lot of people that are trying to find their niche and trying their content and grow themselves as a brand. And I have no problem with that, because as you continue to grow your brand, especially with the KZN name attached, you growing your brand only does us good.
Yeah.
So I don't see a reason why I would try to get in the way of you growing as an individual content creator.
I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I can appreciate about you, and just the entire, I guess, structure of how KZN is formed. The boundaries are very few and far between in terms of how you want or are willing to let people create their content. I know there's a lot of orgs out there that are like, if you're going to be partnered with us, you're streaming at least 3 times a week, you're uploading this many times. There's view thresholds. If you don't, meet our standards, we're not going to pick you up, or we'll drop you unless it's like something serious in your life.
Yeah.
I
mean, don't get me wrong, right? We still do have guidelines. We still have like activity guidelines, because you can't just ghost for like months at a time without telling us what's going on.
Absolutely.
And stuff like that. But in all reality, yeah, I'm not a huge stickler for you have to stream 3 times a week and you have to do this and that. If there's something that I need from you, as far as ramping up your activity, or I haven't heard from you in a while, I don't see you interacting with other members as much. I will reach out to you personally and say it. I'm not really the type to put you out on Front Street. I'm a very direct kind of person. I'll speak to you person to person, or I'll have a member of my staff, or even one of the members like of HR, like Miss Ruthless, um, or Coda. I'll have one of them reach out to you and say that, hey, we've noticed this. If there's any way we can help with it, please let us know. Um, I don't really. It's one of the things that I don't really get when it comes to like esports and like the whole like, I guess, community around it. Um, they put unrealistic situations, like people in unrealistic situations, and put unnecessary pressures on people.
Yeah.
I think the best way for us to grow is if you're able to be yourself, as long as obviously that's not harming anyone else, it's not making anyone else feel wildly uncomfortable, or as if they cannot exist in their own space. Um, I think if I can let you bloom the way that you want to bloom, then that also makes us expand as well.
Which I think is a very smart way about going about it. I mean, I literally came to you about my content going, hey, I'm extremely ruthless and unforgiving with some of the stuff I say. There's some stuff that is either going to be extremely cringe, like me barking at people on Twitter, or stuff that's going to be like, that's kind of like borderline like a war crime. Like that's a really bad joke. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, and you were all for it. You were, if that's your brand, if that's, you know, how you represent yourself, go right ahead. There was no limiting of like, well, if you're going to be joining KZN, you're not allowed to be making the kind of content you want, which I think just makes it even better, because you can come to the org's page and there is a plethora of different types of content, whether it's creators like myself, just anything that hits the wall sticks, and it's like, all right, that's going in the video, compared to people like you that, you know, really structure an entire story behind, you know, each stream, each video that you might be putting out on your YouTube channel, you know, Twitter clips and stuff like that, that really dive deep into it and want to create this story. I mean, we have everything few and far between on both ends of the spectrum. And of course, everybody in the middle that, I mean, just wants to play games and stream and, you know, be themselves.
Absolutely.
So I think that's probably one of my favorite parts why I originally reached out to you about being a part of KZN, is because not only did me and you have some history, and I know a lot of the people from the org, but I mean, the entire atmosphere of it is just, I guess, unique compared to a lot of the things that we see.
Yeah, absolutely.
That being said, the for the listeners, audio listeners, or the people watching on YouTube, the KZN links for both the website and the Twitter, and I believe YouTube channel. Is there a YouTube channel? I don't think I've looked.
There's a YouTube channel. We have a video coming up actually. So stay tuned for that. It's with one of our partners, Fight Ramen.
Yeah.
Super excited for that.
All of those links are going to be in their own specified section of the description. So support the org, everything. Everybody there is family. Everybody, it's an amazing experience. So of course, this being the All Work and All Play podcast, we've gone over a lot of the all play, whether it be voice acting, watching anime, you know, a lot of the org stuff, everything that it has to do with the internet side of things. What are some of the real life duties that you have to take care of and manage that some people might not know about? I'm not asking you to share anything that, you know, you obviously don't feel comfortable with, but like day-to-day basis that you might be dealing with, or like how just what are some of the things that go on in your life?
A lot of the things that, especially from day-to-day basis, what people don't realize is that outside of this, I have a career in logistics right now with Amazon. And it's pretty much an everyday thing. For the most part, thankfully, I get to choose my days. And my workload is just based on how much I can knock out within a week's span. But on top of that, I'm a homeowner. So there's a lot of budgeting that has to go on with my funds to make sure I can keep my lights on,
Yeah.
and I can pay my internet bills and keep my, keep all of the things that I want to do in order to make content possible. So that's a huge thing for me. Really, stuff is slowed down for me, like IRL wise, ever since I moved to Michigan, and obviously with me moving to Michigan, like right at the beginning of COVID. Um, hasn't there hasn't really been a lot outside of literally just work
Yeah.
and content. And honestly, I don't going from like the hustle and bustle kind of lifestyle that I was living when I lived in California versus living now in Michigan, where it's a quiet, or more of a quieter lifestyle outside of content creation, obviously.
Yeah.
It's relaxing. I don't think that I would go back, honestly. Although I miss my friends and I miss my family, I think this is where I'm meant to be.
I mean, that's extremely, humbling. But you think you found your spot, I guess, in the world, at least location-wise.
Yeah.
As somebody that still, unfortunately, lives in California, I've lived in California my entire life. What is it like not being taxed out the ass and actually being able to see the stars at night because there's not a bunch of
Not a bunch of light pollution?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, granted, growing up in Oakland, like the light pollution wasn't like atrocious, but
Yeah.
especially I guess someone who lives a little bit more towards the like LA area, it's like
Yeah.
absolutely asinine.
Stars don't exist where I live.
Yeah. There's like some aspects of stuff that I miss. Like I miss going to the beach, like the beaches,
Yeah.
and just hanging out on the waves. But like I can just go sit out on my porch and stare at the stars and point out constellations and shit. And I know for purposes of irony, I can literally stare at the moon whenever I want to.
Oh, man.
I mean, there's still instances of light pollution here because I mean it's Detroit. There's sometimes there's gonna be light pollution, but for where I am in the D, it's really pretty. It's really pretty.
I mean, that's good. I mean, out here, it's like I live somewhat near the beach. I'm not going to dox myself. I mean, you obviously know exactly where I live.
Yeah, I do.
you know exactly where I live. And some of the KZN members also know exactly where I live. Everybody can vouch of just, I live right near the beach. It's super pretty, and the only time I think I see a star is if a plane is coming out of LAX, and I'm just like, oh look, wait a minute.
It's like okay,
buddy.
yeah.
Oh, look, a star. Never mind. That's flashing. That's a plane.
False alarm. False
My bad,
alarm,
guys. Yeah. Only reason you know it's nighttime out here is because the street lamps come on.
Yeah,
It's the exact same. You get a moon sometime. You get 3 moons a year. Good luck. You don't get to pick the days. You see the moon 3 times a year if you are asleep or inside. Sorry, bud.
Yeah, you're out of luck, man.
Doc one.
Oh man,
I mean, I've always dreamt of just getting out of California because I don't feel like paying $17 for a bottle of water.
Yeah. I definitely don't miss that.
little much for my taste. Drinking fish pee, but I mean, hey man, it's just gotta live, I guess. But
yeah, most definitely. I can definitely say that's one of the things I enjoy about being here. Yes, I feel a lot more financially stable than if I was still in California. The job I had in California, it was decent, but
yeah,
it's nowhere near what I'm able to do with Amazon, and I'm incredibly grateful for Amazon giving me the opportunity to do this job.
Shout out Amazon, not sponsored.
But my eyes are definitely set on larger things for me, uh, and crossing fingers, hoping we get there.
Yeah. So I know you were saying that you feel like you very much belong in Michigan. Is there a dream spot, a dream location anywhere in the world that you would rather be living in? Money not being a problem, work not being an issue, just a location.
If money wasn't an issue, and I'm genuinely planning on this after I retire, um, I'd love to go back to Aomori in Japan and spend the rest of my retirement days there.
Is there any specific reason? Is it like the culture, the memories you may have attached? Is it just it's not America?
I'm definitely homesick.
Ah,
Yeah.
gotcha.
The connections that I made over there, and some of the people that I met, and even some of the people that came back with me from Aomori, um, it stuck with me, and it to be honest, it changed my life. I don't think that I'd be the same person that you're talking to today if I never got to leave overseas.
That's extremely. I mean, I'm glad because you just said you have the plan of going back. So I guess that's something to be looking forward to. Is it something that if I were to just ball out right now, I have an apartment ready for you, I have everything settled, would you go back right here, right now? Drop everything you're doing?
If you offered it to me, absolutely.
That's extremely interesting. That you are so dead set on that nothing else matters. As long as you have a place to live, everything is settled. Cool, I'm going.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's man, because I'm not sure I have a spot like that. I'm not sure I have a location where I'm like, if everything was fine, if I didn't have to worry about money or anything, rest of my days right here. I have places I would like to visit, but that's interesting to say the least, especially with, I guess, the amount of culture in just so many different areas. Because the culture that you get from obviously the west coast of America is a whole nother side of the coin compared to the stuff you get from Japan. And that being said, there's hundreds of places you can go.
Yeah,
which I think is why traveling is so hard for me, because I'm just I don't know what to choose. I don't know what I want to go experience first.
One of the main things that I miss, and unfortunately I can't grow them here, but I miss being able to go to the Hanami Festival in the beginning of the year and look at the sakura trees in bloom.
That explains a lot about the KZN designs, but that would be extremely fascinating.
It was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life, and I genuinely think that the first time that I saw it, I cried.
I wouldn't blame you.
And I'd be semi content if the weather here was decent enough or consistent enough for me to be able to grow a sakura tree here. When I lived with my exchange family in Aomori, they had a sakura tree in their backyard, and there was a little stone bench underneath it. And what I would always do is that when I couldn't focus and I just wanted to clear my head, I would take my laptop and I would just sit on that bench and study underneath the sakura tree.
That sounds extremely peaceful.
Yeah.
Wow.
I still dream of that shit when I go to bed.
I do not blame you.
Yeah.
Some people have extremely nice, pleasant dreams of yours, obviously, just going back to a time, and I'm sitting here dreaming that I'm fighting Batman in Gotham City. There are two entirely different things.
Yeah.
Working with kind of backtracking a little bit, working with Amazon, I've only known everybody to work at Amazon obviously doing make line or folding boxes for 10 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
So hearing that there's other jobs besides what seems like slave work for a decent amount, I don't know why I completely forgot that Amazon itself is still a company. It still has a bunch of other stuff going on besides, hey, if you want this maid outfit in 3 days, I got you. Like,
No, absolutely. When I started working for Amazon, actually, I started out as an associate in a building working like 14 hours a day. So I definitely remember that.
yeah,
Um, and I mean, I was a college student. I was broke. I wanted the money.
yeah,
I didn't give a fuck if I limped to my car at the end of the night. I just needed something to keep me on my feet.
yeah,
Um, and I can look back at those days and still appreciate all the work that I put in. Even though they weren't, I mean, obviously, I mean, I can say this comfortably as someone who still works for Amazon. They weren't always the best conditions. They
yeah.
weren't. But I'm thankful that I'm no longer in that. And now that I'm in a corporate position, I can work with some of those buildings and some of those warehouses to create better conditions for the associates that are still there.
That's good. That's good to hear. Kind of remembering where you came from and being like, I remember how shit this was. I'm gonna try and help.
Yeah.
So that's good. Obviously, we've kind of gone over, some of the more personal stuff that you do, especially being like a homeowner, working with Amazon. What is your, I guess, mental routine that you do in order to not get stressed about one or the other, whether it being, real life duties or gaming and making content? What is the way that you find yourself balancing everything on your plate?
Oh, music, 100%. Anything musically, whether it's making music, whether it's just listening to and appreciating music. Um, Music is what keeps me grounded. If there was a wasn't a day that I had a song on my heart, I genuinely feel like I'd go insane.
Are you one of the people like myself that is just a human jukebox where you can
Yes.
hear like one tap and you're like, oh, that reminds me of 7 other different songs? And
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, discussing music, what are some of your favorite genres, artists? I mean, maybe songs you hold extremely close to your heart.
Okay, so obviously growing up in the West Coast, right? Um, Artists like Snoop and the Game. Um, there's like so many. My dad like raised me listening to more than just what we had in the hood. I grew up listening to bands like Dream Theater. Um, I grew up, listening to Red Hot Chili Peppers and
Yeah.
Metallica. Like my dad made sure that I stayed very, very versatile, introducing me to like Jimi Hendrix and letting me watch like old footage from Woodstock. And even though my dad wasn't around at that time, like he still appreciated what it was.
Yeah.
And he just really tried to introduce me to all aspects of music so that when I grew older and I was in a position that I can make my own, that I was able to take inspiration from pretty much everything that I could and make something that was unique to me.
That's extremely cool. I think the only way I could relate to that is just I've always enjoyed music. I didn't really have anybody in my family that showed me a lot. But slowly, obviously everybody ends up listening to music. I mean, I can't imagine anybody that goes through daily life without hearing at least like one song or like remembering like a tune. I'd go insane. But slowly growing up and just exploring music is a lot different than, kind of somebody not holding your hand but showing you different genres, because I obviously become very biased towards some of the genres or bands and artists that I found myself, because I consider that like my thing. Like I found them by myself. Like I'm obviously going to hold them on a higher pedestal than most, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely.
That being said, what is your opinion on country music?
On country music. Okay, so actually fun fact. There's some country music is 50-50 for me. There's some artists that I actually have songs that I actually don't mind listening to and are actually pleasing to my ears. And then there's some that are so goddamn awful that I literally want to rip my eardrums out.
I don't blame you.
Yeah. My mom is a huge Darius Rucker fan. My mom is also like fan of like Kenny Chesney, and like like a couple other. Was it Florida Georgia Line? I think is one. My mom's a fan of some country groups, but she's also really picky with her country music.
Yeah.
And most of the country preferences that I have, I got from my mother. And that's because she got family from Georgia and they listen to all that stuff. And I'm like, some stuff just kind of stuck with her.
Yeah, she's from Yeehaw country.
So my mother actually grew up here in Michigan.
Oh.
And she met my dad out in California.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry for both of them for having to come to California. My condolences.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's extremely interesting. I love meeting people that have deep-rooted connections with music, whether it's through their family, through their own, volition. People that create music is why I get along with people like Danica so well.
Yeah.
Because I just love anything to do with music. So finding people that also have the same appreciation, whether it's the same genres or not, is always extremely nice, because I feel like music connects everybody. And
absolutely.
It's like I said, I can't imagine a world without music. I can't imagine going throughout my day going, yeah, I'm just gonna raw dog it, just no music, not a single song.
I genuinely think, like I said, if there was a day that I didn't have a song like etched in the back of my mind, I would genuinely go insane.
Yeah, no, I couldn't do it. No thanks.
Yeah,
I would rather just unsubscribe from life. Like, I can't I can't do that.
Yeah, let me cancel my life subscription real quick.
Hey, bro, the life subscription in California expensive as fuck. This shit.
Like, that's $20 just to breathe. All right,
bro, this air. We get air tax. Like,
this flavored oxygen hitting kind of different. Wait a minute.
You ever pay $34 to breathe in smog? Like,
yeah,
not happening.
Wow, this air has a really pungent smoke flavor to it. That's crazy.
Shit tastes like a McDonald's Sprite. Straight to the lungs.
This shit's spicy.
Why is it spicy? Yeah. There ain't no shot it's supposed to be this spicy. No reason.
No, zero at all. But yeah, oh man, speaking about music, my music taste changed so drastically when I moved to Japan. Oh my god. Whoa.
Anime intros on the daily.
Mostly like okay, so J-rock is the genre of music that's like probably my favorite right now.
Mm-hmm.
But there's like so many different facets within J-rock, and more specifically Japanese math rock is kind of where I fall in like home with, but I still listen to like Vocaloid and other like, I guess, stereotypical like J-rock and other music.
Yeah.
But there's a Japanese guitarist specifically that I adore and I will listen to repeat for like the eternity every time I hear him play. His name is Ichika Nito, and he is he was the first ever Japanese guitarist sponsored by Ibanez, I believe. And then I think he was one of Fender's first ever Japanese sponsored guitarists as well. But he's done he's been involved in a ton of like projects for anime openings as well. But just hearing him play versus like the stuff he's done projects on is like two completely different tones, and it's absolutely insane. But yeah, like stuff like groups like Yosobi, Myth and Roy, and Yama, Burnout Syndromes, who did the theme song to Excel World. There's like so many good Japanese groups that even now I still listen to, keep up with their music, buy their albums. It's definitely become an anchor with me that kind of stuck and didn't let me leave.
I don't know much about any kind of Japanese, I guess, music besides like haha funny anime intro.
Like, at least like I did that one.
Yeah, that's just from Bunny Girl. And it's like,
yeah.
But I like the jujitsu opening.
Oh yeah, Kakaikitan, yeah,
That is on my playlist. I play that at least once every time I'm in my car. Like
yeah.
windows down, jamming out. I'm just like, I don't know what he's saying, but this shit bangs. Like
Funny enough, I literally just opened my Spotify, and on the front page of my Spotify is Kakaikitan.
exactly. Like it knows. It's a good ass song. I don't know what the fuck you saying, but it bangs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Hella
It's a
big
good as hell.
banger, big banger.
You'll have to send me like make me a playlist or like just send me just random songs at one point. That way I can kind of try and get into it or at least see more about it.
So I literally have a playlist called Homesick. I can send it to you.
I'll just send it through. I'll listen to it right after we're done. But like, yeah, I wanted to get into it a little bit because I know I was speaking with one of the KZM members, May, and she's into a lot of like the J-rock stuff or just like any kind of Japanese music, and I'm sitting here like I blast punk rock into my ears. Like there's
See, I'm down with punk rock too. Punk I'm down with just like rock music in general. It's so diverse. I grew up just like if we're talking about rock music in general, I grew up on Avenged Sevenfold, Sick Puppies, Atreyu, Lamb of God, Megadeth, Five Finger Death Punch,
Yes,
Killswitch
sir.
Engage. Trying to get some more motionless and white. I was definitely one of those. I was definitely a Black Veil Brides kid at one point.
This motherfucker's emo stage was insane.
Sleeping with Sirens.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, yeah. Ice Nine Kills. Like all of it.
All
Loved
about
it. Yeah.
So straying a little way from music, I mean, it could probably play a very big role in it. What is your best advice for content creators or streamers or anything trying to balance their real world issues or just lives in general with what they're trying to do online? Whether it's from stuff you've experienced, things you've noticed from other people, what do you think the best collection of advice is?
So one of the biggest problems for me has always been consistency. And obviously that lack of consistency can come from sometimes just feeling overwhelmed with IRL stuff versus content. And the biggest thing for me, consistency wise, was I had to take the same attitude that I had towards, my education and towards my music and towards that stuff, like holding myself accountable, setting goals for myself that I can see realistically happening and devote that sufficient amount of time to. And those are, just short-term goals, not like huge long-term goals that you can kind of sometimes lose sight of.
Yeah.
And so I took that same attitude and I put it towards my content creation. I made sure that I took advantage of some of the things on Twitch, like being able to put a schedule out on your front page. For if you're building in Discord, making sure you're actively communicating with the people in your Discord, even if it's like, short bullshit mean conversations, getting them engaged and then posting like a graphic of your schedule in the update section of your Discord.
Yeah.
And that way the people that are already consistently watching you know or can at least hold you accountable for the times you've already set or the promise you've already made with that schedule. And that's just another accountability partner. The biggest thing is accountability. If there's no one to hold you accountable for what you're supposed to do, you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
And so that's, accountability and consistency. That's the biggest thing I can say, because I can't tell you what works for you. You fit the niche that you fit in, and you spend as much time as you need to trying to find that niche. But once you find it, you stick with it and you fucking run with it, because that's going to be what seals the deal for you.
Absolutely.
There's some people that are like, oh, don't start as a variety. No, you stream whatever the fuck you want until you find something that works.
Or I mean, even streaming something you enjoy doing. Like I know there's people that will play like, or especially when Fortnite was still absolutely huge. It was I don't like playing Fortnite, but I get the most viewers from that, and I'm like scared to move away from it.
So the point of what works for you is deeper than just what your view count is during it.
Exactly.
Because there are people that have high view counts and have like zero engagement in chat.
Yeah.
There are people that literally come just to, like, okay, for instance, let's look at stuff like, actual professional contracted video game, like, look at CS:GO pros or
Yeah.
Valorant pros or even stuff like that. If they didn't have a foundation, like content creation wise, before they got contracted and before they started to compete, when they stopped competing, their viewership base is going to decline drastically. Even though they're still going to have a core following, it's going to decline drastically because not everyone is going to care anymore because they don't compete. But if you have people that actually had a decent following in like content creation wise before they got contracted to an org, before they did all of this stuff, even when they stop, they're going to have a core following because they already built that community and already found what worked for them and then committed to that until they got contracted.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the biggest things I know people say don't start as variety streamers, or like variety is going to be a lot harder to grow on. But I think variety streamers are what end up sticking around the most because, like you said, even if you get contracted to, it doesn't matter if you have FaZe in your name and you're playing, like, COD World Championships. If you're not entertaining as a person, or you don't have this niche set for what you do with your content, it's not going to matter what you have in front of your name. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I've held myself accountable for is it doesn't matter when it doesn't matter what I'm playing or when I'm playing it, I'm still the same person. I'm still the same personality making the same cringy jokes. I would rather build something off of my personality than being good at it X, Y, and Z, like for video games.
Like, okay, my perfect example of somebody that has not changed at all, no matter what game that they played, is Kaylee. Yeah, Kaylee has been the absolute same from when she started streaming to now. She's been the same cringe motherfucker. And there was a while where, like, I would tune into her streams and I would sit and she would talk about how she's like worried about whether or not she'd have to change for an org and have to like step away from who she was for an org. And I guarantee that there were some people that like reached out to her that were like, yeah, you will have to do a little bit of a change. But then when FaZe reached out to her, they were like, we don't give a fuck, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And that's who she ran with. That's so she picked it. And I know that she wouldn't have picked an org that would have asked her to change, because she already said that. She said, if there's an org that asks me to change, I'm not going to go with it. I'm just going to stay solo. And I think that's an important mindset for a lot of streamers to have. Obviously, unless you're doing something that's going to be drastically TOS. But like, even then, look at Kaylee. Kaylee's like pushes TOS just about in every fucking conversation. And she still has sponsors.
Yeah. It's just
it's possible for you to exist as the person you really want to be, as long as you're not hurting anyone else, and still succeed as a streamer. You don't have to be what the VTuber call in the VTuber community. We call it being say-so, and say-so is being family friendly.
Yeah.
You don't have to be family friendly in order to succeed. You don't have to. No. And you also don't have to be a fucking degen in order to succeed. You can be whoever the fuck you want to be.
Man, I already felt the degen part. I play League every day. Man, fuck. Man. You couldn't have told me this like a year sooner. God damn.
But yeah, like what you were talking about, like variety streaming, and people going, oh, variety streaming is only gonna be harder. I started full sending streaming as a leaderboard grinder in Apex Legends.
Yeah.
And while I was still a face cam streamer, my highest point of viewership was when I was top 100 Watson season 5, and because my name was on the Tracker Network leaderboards for Watson, I had people coming and watch, but they would only come in and watch to see how I played Watson. They didn't care about me. They didn't care about me as a content creator, as a streamer. They just cared about how I played their legend. And once I stopped doing 12-hour streams a day grinding leaderboards, I lost the majority of that viewership.
Yeah, because they're there for the game, which I think
they're there for the game
is one of the reasons I love being a variety content creator.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter as long as as long as the person is having fun playing their video game, like even if as long as they're having fun playing 3D chess on their computer, I don't give a damn. If you're still the same genuine person, no matter what, whether you're trying to be a relaxed streamer, if you're trying to be hyper about chess, anything, as long as you're the same person, I'm gonna come for you. I don't care what you're playing.
Absolutely.
And especially with streaming, I think YouTube is here and there, but streaming especially is. I'm going to interact with you, the person. If I don't like you as a person, or personalities don't mesh, I'm not gonna want to come into your stream regardless of what you're playing.
Yeah, I think one of the lies that's spread really easily within the content creation community is that it's focus on your content, focus on your content, focus on your content, and not focus on your community.
This very big grind mentality of just pump out content. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, because you can pump out hella edited content with transitions and captions and cool like sound effects and top tier microphone audio. I have friends, and much love to them, that I started out streaming with that spent a lot more on their setups than I did. When I was averaging 40 to 50 viewers a stream doing leaderboards with Watson, I was playing on a PlayStation.
Yeah.
And I had friends that had like $3,000 to $4,000 setups and were only averaging like 3 viewers.
Yeah. I think that's another big thing of you don't need to pour money into your setup. Like to do setup value does not equate to content.
Yeah, it's knowing what to do with what you've got.
Exactly.
And like even now, I think my entire setup cost me about like $2,500.
I mean, I've came from like dirt. I originally started streaming on an XboxOne. And if I wanted to edit videos, I downloaded them from Twitch, and I would go into the computer lab at my high school, and I would edit on those computers, and I would upload them there. Or, like I would edit TikTok clips on my phone, like with clips like that, until I got a computer. And even then, this computer has, I think it's like 8 gigs of RAM, a GTX 660, and 500 gigs of space. Like there's very few things I could do with it, but like you said, working with what you have is way more than impressive, especially some of the people that only do TikTok. That is all off your phone.
Yeah.
And they can
like it's crazy to me. Like a majority of my VTuber friends, they don't have like super expensive setups. Like a lot of my VTuber friends that are literally partners still have like a 1080.
Yeah.
Still have like a GTX 1080, and I'm like, what the fuck?
How?
What? But they focus on community building.
Yeah.
And they build the community around their VTuber, and people come to see their VTuber. Their VTuber model. They compliment them on the model. They, we do cringe voice redeems and but it's stuff that entices the audience, that makes them want to come back and do it over and over again. And that's really what it's about. It's about giving them something to come back to, not just giving them something to watch for the next 30 minutes.
Yeah, which I think is super important, and I think a lot of people are barely realizing that. Some people, barely joining the community are realizing it at a good stage, but then there's others where, it's been a long time. This is all that's kind of hammered into your head. Trying to change that takes a lot of work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Aeon, it has been an amazing hour-ish. Like I want to say it's like an hour and 5 minutes or something. Talking with you and getting to know, more about your backstory and more of you as a person instead of just a VTuber model.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. What is next? The floor is yours. What is next for you in terms of content creation, in terms of KZN leading? What do you have going on in your life, and where can people find you?
Well, in terms of KZN stuff, obviously, like I said, we've got a video upcoming with Vite Ramen over hopefully the next couple of weeks. I'm going to double check in with our partnership manager, James, to see like where we are with that. And we'll make sure to update all the KZN socials with that. But as far as me, you can find everything related to Aeon. I go on all of my social media, which is at AeonSmiles. That's on Twitter, Twitch, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, and Instagram. And You can find me on YouTube at Aeon Agohige. We try to post at least a video or a clip or something a week. And we do everything from Hades, Phasmophobia, Dead by Daylight, the whole 9 yards. And for the next 2 months, we're going to be doing spooky reacts pretty much every week. If you end up joining the Discord, there's an Aeon React section that you can post any type of meme or any type of spooky clip that you guys want me to react to on stream. Any interaction is honestly was like incredibly appreciated.
Amazing. I'll be sure, of course, everything with KZN, everything with your content, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, everything is all going to be linked in the description. I highly recommend everybody to go check it out. And I mean, one more time before we sign off, thank you so much for coming on. It did absolute pleasure.
Man, it's a pleasure every time we get to talk, man.
Absolutely. We are two absolute goofballs sometimes, especially in private. It has gotten real bad. There's some very sus comment.
Some very monk ass content.
Bro, TOS. Alrighty. Well, if you have made it this far into the podcast, thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Aeon, again for coming on. Everything will be linked in the description for if you want to go ahead and find any kind of social media, any kind of content relating anything we've talked about. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share with a friend if you think they would enjoy the content. And I will see you guys in the next video whenever I post it, which will probably be soon. Alrighty, peace.